3 weeks after publicly humiliating his security guard. Victor Langford would stand in that same marble lobby, silent, exposed, and begging for forgiveness. But on that morning, he was untouchable. And Samuel Okoye was a man everyone watched fall. It began with a text message. Samuel felt the vibration in his pocket while standing at his post beside the polished entrance doors of Langford Global's headquarters. The morning sun reflected against the glass walls, making the building look like power itself had an address. He checked the screen discreetly. Dad, registration closes Friday. Please tell me we're okay. His chest tightened. His daughter rarely asked about money. She knew better. She always pretended not to notice when bills stacked up on the kitchen counter. He typed a response. We're fine. I'll handle it. He didn't hit send because he wasn't sure it was true. The glass doors suddenly burst open. Victor Langford entered like a man allergic to delay. Tailored charcoal suit, silver tie clip, controlled impatience, a Bluetooth earpiece still glowing from a call he had just ended mid-sentence. He didn't acknowledge the receptionist. He didn't look at Samuel. He walked straight toward the security barrier and pushed through. It didn't move. The metal arm stayed locked. The lobby shifted into a strange, alert stillness. Samuel stepped forward calmly. Good morning, sir. Victor pressed the barrier again, harder this time. Open it. Your badge, please. Victor turned slowly. The look on his face was not confusion. It was disbelief. You're joking. No, sir. Several junior associates near the coffee station froze mid-conversation. 2 receptionists exchanged nervous glances. A visiting client paused beside a leather sofa. Victor checked his jacket pockets, then his briefcase, then his trousers. Nothing. You know who I am, he said quietly. Yes, sir. Then open it. Samuel felt his daughter's text like a weight against his ribs. I'm required to scan identification for all staff and executives. Victor's expression changed. Not angry yet. Offense. You're quoting policy to me? It's company protocol. Victor let out a short, humorless laugh. Then he raised his voice just enough for the room to hear. Listen to this. He's explaining company policy to the owner. A ripple of awkward laughter spread. Samuel felt heat creep up his neck, but he did not step back. The rule applies to everyone, he said. That sentence sealed it. Victor closed the distance between them until they were inches apart. You think that uniform gives you authority? Victor asked softly. You think standing here with a scanner makes you powerful? Samuel remained still. Victor's voice hardened. You are replaceable. Completely. There are men outside this building right now who would do your job for less pay and with better attitudes. Less pay. Samuel's jaw tightened. Victor glanced around the lobby again, ensuring he had an audience. This is what happens when you give small people a little power, he said. The humiliation was surgical, precise, designed for spectators. Samuel's phone buzzed again in his pocket. He didn't check it. Without the badge, he said carefully, I can't let you through. Silence crashed into the lobby. Victor snapped his fingers sharply toward HR, who had just stepped off the elevator. You, he called. Suspend him. Effective immediately. The HR coordinator hesitated. Sir, perhaps we should. Now. The word echoed against marble and glass. Everything sped up after that. Whispers. Side glances. Someone subtly angling their phone higher. Samuel felt the moment slipping away from him. Not his job. His dignity. He removed his access card slowly and placed it on the security desk. Victor leaned in one final time. You should be grateful you even work here. Then he turned as a junior executive rushed down with an emergency override badge. The barrier unlocked instantly. Victor walked through. The employees parted like water. The elevator doors closed behind him. And just like that, he was gone. The lobby remained heavy with silence. Samuel stood there for a second longer than necessary. Then his phone buzzed again. He looked. Dad? They said if it's not paid by Friday, I lose my spot. His vision blurred slightly. He typed, Give me today. This time, he pressed send. He removed his security jacket carefully and folded it over his arm. As he walked toward the exit, a young accountant stepped closer and whispered, "You were right. Everyone knows you were right." Samuel nodded once. Outside, the door slid shut behind him. Inside, HR was already drafting paperwork. Suspension without pay. Pending review. Upstairs, Victor Langford had already moved on to his next meeting. Irritation forgotten. He believed power erased consequences. He did not notice that someone in that lobby had captured everything. Not just the confrontation, but every word, every insult, every laugh. And by the end of the week, that video would no longer belong to the lobby. It would belong to the world. By noon, Samuel's suspension was official. By 3 o'clock, it was permanent. The call came while he was sitting in his car outside his apartment building, engine off, hands resting on the steering wheel. After reviewing the incident, the HR director said carefully, "Mr. Langford feels your conduct demonstrated insubordination." Samuel stared at the dashboard. "Insubordination," he repeated quietly. "You refused a direct executive instruction. I followed written policy." A pause. "Yes, but perception matters." Perception. The word lingered long after the call ended. His termination package would include 1 month's severance. Health benefits would expire in 30 days. His final paycheck would be processed by Friday. Friday, the same day his daughter's tuition was due. Samuel closed his eyes briefly. He had faced worse pressure before. Military deployments. Unpredictable terrain. Situations where calm meant survival. But this felt different. This wasn't danger. It was helplessness. When he walked into the apartment, his daughter Amara was at the dining table with her laptop open. Papers were spread around her. Acceptance letters, scholarship forms, a campus brochure she'd read. So often the edges were soft. She looked up immediately. "You're home early." He forced a small smile. "Slow day." She studied his face. "Dad, are we okay?" There was again that careful question. He pulled out a chair and sat across from her. "There's been a change at work." Her shoulders stiffened. "What kind of change?" "I won't be going back." Silence fell between them. Not dramatic, not loud, just heavy. "They fired you?" she asked quietly. He nodded once. "For doing your job?" He didn't answer, because the truth would only make it worse. Amara swallowed. "It's because of me, isn't it? The tuition?" "No," his voice was firm now. "Never say that." Tears filled her eyes, but she blinked them back stubbornly. "I can defer," she said quickly. "I'll apply again next year. I can work." "It's fine." It wasn't fine. Samuel reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "You worked too hard for this." That night, after Amara went to bed, Samuel sat alone in the dim kitchen light. He reviewed his savings account. Not enough. He could cover rent, utilities, groceries, but not tuition, not without a miracle. His phone buzzed around 11:47 p.m. Unknown number. He considered ignoring it, then answered. "Mr. Okoye?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes. My name is Lena Morales. I was in the lobby this morning." He sat up straighter. "I recorded what happened." His pulse quickened. "I didn't mean to," she continued. "I was sending a voice note, and my camera was already open. But I caught everything." Samuel closed his eyes slowly. "That's not your problem," he said. "It should be," she replied, "because what he did was wrong." There was conviction in her voice. Not outrage, not gossip, purpose. "I've been thinking about posting it," she said carefully, "but I wanted to ask you first." The room felt smaller suddenly. Posting it, that meant attention. Attention meant consequences. Victor Langford was not a man who tolerated embarrassment. "You have no idea what he's capable of," Samuel said quietly. There was a pause on the line. "I think I'm starting to." Samuel leaned back in his chair, staring at the dark ceiling. If the video went public, Victor would retaliate. But if it didn't, nothing would change. "Send it to me," Samuel said finally. A moment later, his phone vibrated. He pressed play. There he was, standing straight, calm. And then Victor's voice filled the kitchen. You are replaceable. The words sounded even colder recorded. At the bottom of the screen, he noticed something he hadn't seen before. The Langford Global logo was clearly visible behind them. Brand, reputation, image, all in frame. His phone buzzed again. A message from Lena. Once this is online, there's no taking it back. Samuel stared at the screen. Upstairs, Amara shifted in her sleep. Down the hall, unpaid bills sat in a neat stack. And across the city, Victor Langford was likely sleeping peacefully, certain that the morning's humiliation was already forgotten. Samuel's thumb hovered over the share icon, because once he made this choice, it wouldn't just be about his job anymore. It would be about war. Samuel didn't sleep. At 2:13 a.m., he pressed send, not to a news station, not to a journalist, just one upload, one caption. Policy applies to everyone. He turned his phone face down and sat in silence. By 6 a.m., nothing had happened. By 7:15, it had 312 views. By 8:02, it had 4,900. By 8:47, Samuel's phone would not stop vibrating. Amara walked into the kitchen, half awake, scrolling her own phone. "Dad," she said slowly, "why is Mr. Langford trending?" Samuel looked up. Trending. She turned the screen toward him. There it was. The video. Clipped. Zoomed. Caption. CEO humiliates security guard for doing his job. The comments were multiplying by the second. Power trip. This is disgusting. Protect this man at all costs. Boycott Langford Global. Someone had already slowed down the moment Victor said, "You are replaceable." It hit harder that way. Deliberate. Cool. Amara's eyes moved from the phone to her father. "Dad, is this?" "Yes." Her expression shifted. Not embarrassment. Not fear. Pride. "You didn't yell," she said quietly. "You just stood there." Samuel didn't know how to respond. His phone rang. A known number. Then another. Then another. Emails began flooding in. By 10:30 a.m., the video had crossed 250,000 views. By noon, it hit 1 million. News outlets began reposting it. A morning talk show labeled it corporate arrogance in 90 seconds. And by early afternoon, Langford Global released a statement. Samuel read it twice. The clip circulating online lacks context. Langford Global maintains high standards of professionalism and expects employees to demonstrate flexibility when interacting with executive leadership. Flexibility. Samuel almost laughed. Another notification appeared. Victor Langford had disabled comments on his personal accounts. But that didn't stop the tide. Former employees began posting their own stories. Screenshots surfaced. Anonymous testimonies. Patterns. The narrative was shifting from one bad morning to something much larger. At 2:17 p.m., Samuel's phone rang again. This time, the caller ID showed a name. Victor Langford. Amara looked at him. "Are you going to answer?" Samuel inhaled once and pressed accept. Victor didn't greet him. "What have you done?" he demanded. Samuel remained calm. "I posted the truth. You've damaged my company's reputation. You damaged it yourself." A sharp breath came through the line. "You think this ends well for you?" Victor said quietly. "You think internet sympathy pays bills?" There it was. The threat beneath the tone. "You signed a severance agreement," Victor continued. "There's a confidentiality clause." Samuel's stomach tightened. He hadn't read the fine print carefully. "I didn't disclose private information," Samuel replied. "You incited public harassment," Victor snapped. "My legal team is reviewing options." Legal team. The word landed heavy. After the call ended, Samuel opened the severance email again. Buried halfway down the document, a non-disparagement clause. Broad, vague, dangerous. Amara watched his face shift. "What is it?" "He might sue." Her confidence faltered for the first time. "But he was wrong." "Yes." "That should matter." Samuel didn't answer, because in his experience, right and powerful were not always the same thing. By evening, the video passed 3 million views. A major investor publicly requested a board review. 2 brand partners announced they were monitoring the situation. The pressure was building, but so was the retaliation. At 9:03 p.m., Samuel received an email from an unfamiliar law firm. Subject line: cease and desist notice. He opened it slowly. The language was aggressive. Defamation, breach of contract, damages. He felt the room closing around him. This wasn't just about a job anymore. It was about legal warfare. Amara stepped closer. Dad. He looked at her, then at the screen, then back at her. I think he's gonna try to ruin us, he said quietly. Outside, across the city, Victor Langford was not panicking. He was strategizing. And by morning, Samuel would discover that the video had triggered something neither of them expected. Not just public outrage, but an investigation. And this time, Victor wouldn't be controlling the narrative. By the next morning, the story was no longer just viral. It was financial. Langford Global stock opened down 6%. By midday, it had dropped 12%. Financial analysts were replaying the clip on business channels, dissecting not just Victor's tone, but the company culture behind it. This isn't about one incident, one commentator said live. This suggests systemic leadership failure. The words hit harder than any hashtag. Inside Langford Global's headquarters, emergency meetings were being called every hour. And for the first time in years, Victor Langford was not the loudest voice in the room. At 10:22 a.m., Samuel received another call. This time, it wasn't a threat. Mr. Okoye, the woman asked. My name is Danielle Cho. I'm with the State Labor Oversight Commission. He sat up straighter. We've received multiple formal complaints following the release of your video. Multiple. We're opening an investigation into Langford Global's workplace conduct and executive practices. Samuel's pulse slowed, not from relief, but from gravity. This may require your formal testimony, she continued. Would you be willing to cooperate? He glanced at Amara across the room. Yes, he said firmly. After call ended, Amara whispered, That's good, right? It's bigger, he replied. And bigger meant unpredictable. By afternoon, another development hit. An investigative journalist published an article linking Victor to past internal HR settlements that had never gone public. Anonymous former managers described a culture of intimidation, legal intimidation. The narrative had shifted again. This wasn't about a suspended security guard. This was about leadership under scrutiny. Then at 3:40 p.m., the retaliation began. Samuel's bank app sent a notification. His severance deposit, pending the day before, had been reversed. He refreshed the screen. Nothing. He checked his email. There it was. A message from Langford Global's legal department. Due to breach of contractual non-disparagement terms, severance compensation is hereby rescinded effective immediately. Amara saw his expression change. What happened? They pulled the severance. Her face went pale. But rent? I know. Silence settled heavily between them. The war had just become personal. Victor wasn't just protecting his image anymore. He was applying pressure. Financial pressure. Samuel's phone buzzed again. Lena Morales. I just heard, she said without greeting. They're retaliating. Yes. That's illegal. Proving it is expensive. There was a pause. Then Lena said something unexpected. I'm not anonymous anymore. Samuel frowned. What? I gave my name to the journalist. I confirmed I recorded it, and I told him I stand by it. His breath caught. You shouldn't have done that. I couldn't watch them rewrite the story, she replied. They're already calling you disgruntled. The word stung. I won't let them paint you as bitter, she continued. You were calm, professional. Anyone can see that. Samuel closed his eyes briefly. You just made yourself a target, he said quietly. I know. That was the new complication. This was no longer one man versus a CEO. It was becoming a line in the sand. By evening, Langford Global announced that Victor Langford would be temporarily stepping back during the review. Temporarily. The wording was careful, controlled, but investors weren't reassured, nor was the public. At 8:12 p.m., Samuel received an official letter, not an email, a courier-delivered envelope. Inside, a formal notice of intent to sue for reputational damages. The amount listed made his vision blur. It wasn't just enough to bankrupt him. It was enough to bury him for life. Amara read the number over his shoulder. "That's insane," she whispered. "It's intimidation," he said. But intimidation works. Outside, neighbors had started recognizing him. Some offered support. Others stared. He was becoming visible. Public. And public battles are rarely clean. His phone buzzed one more time before midnight. A message from an unknown number. "If you testify, we release everything." He stared at it. Everything? There were no attachments. No explanation. Just a threat. And for the first time since posting the video, Samuel felt something colder than fear. Uncertainty. Because whatever everything meant, it was meant to destroy him. And tomorrow, he was scheduled to meet the investigators in person. Samuel arrived at the State Labor Oversight Commission building 10 minutes early. The envelope containing the lawsuit notice rested in his briefcase. His phone, silent now, felt heavier than usual in his pocket. Amara had hugged him before he left. "Just tell the truth," she said. He intended to, but the message from a night before lingered in his mind. "If you testify, we release everything." Everything. He didn't have secrets. He had mistakes. A failed business venture years ago. Late mortgage payments after his wife passed. A disciplinary complaint from his early military days that had been dismissed. Nothing criminal. Nothing immoral. But in the wrong light. Anything could be twisted. Inside the commission office, Danielle Cho greeted him with a firm handshake. "We appreciate your willingness to come forward," she said. "You're not the only one." He paused. "What do you mean?" She opened a folder. 3 additional names were highlighted. Senior managers. Former executives. All requesting protected testimony. "They've been waiting for someone to push back publicly," Danielle explained. "Your video gave them cover." Samuel felt something shift. This wasn't just retaliation anymore. It was exposure. He began recounting the incident. Every detail. Every word. Every reaction in the lobby. When he repeated Victor's line, "You are replaceable," Danielle's pen stopped moving. "Has he said things like that before?" she asked. Samuel hesitated. Yes. He hadn't realized it until now. He described overheard conversations, public reprimands, subtle humiliation disguised as high standards. The pattern became clear as he spoke it aloud. This wasn't an isolated explosion. It was culture. 2 hours later, as he stepped outside the building, his phone vibrated again. Unknown number. He answered. This time, Victor didn't hide behind legal language. "You really think they'll protect you?" he asked calmly. Samuel kept walking. "You've already lost your job, your severance. You're about to lose your savings fighting a lawsuit you can't afford. You're the one under investigation," Samuel replied. Victor laughed softly. "Investigations fade. Headlines change. But reputations?" His voice sharpened. "Those can be erased." A message notification appeared mid-call. An email attachment from a private investigator firm. Samuel opened it after the call ended. His stomach dropped. Photographs. Old ones. Him outside a foreclosure court building 12 years ago. Him arguing with a bank representative after his wife's medical bills spiraled. Him sitting in his car, head in his hands. Private moments. Turned into ammunition. The email caption read, "Financial instability. Emotional volatility. Pattern of failure." They were building a narrative, not about the lobby, about him. Back at home, Amara watched his face as he showed her the photos. "They're trying to make you look unstable," she whispered. "They're trying to make me look unreliable. And unreliable witnesses lose credibility, lose cases, lose everything." His phone buzzed again. This time it was Lena. "You need to see this," she said urgently. She sent a link. A former Langford executive had gone on record, not anonymously, on camera. The interview clip loaded. "I resigned because I could no longer participate in executive intimidation. the former CFO stated. What happened in that lobby? That wasn't new. Samuel stared at the screen. This was escalation. Public, direct, dangerous. Within minutes, Langford Global stock dropped another 8%. Board members were reportedly calling for an emergency vote. Victor's silence online had shifted to defensive press statements. But something had changed. The story was no longer Samuel versus Victor. It was leadership versus accountability. Then the final blow of the day arrived. A news alert banner flashed across Samuel's screen. Langford Global Board to convene emergency meeting. CEO position under review. Amara looked at him. Is this it? Samuel exhaled slowly. No, he said. Not yet. Because powerful men do not fall quietly. And as if to prove it, another message appeared on his phone. From Victor. If I go down, I won't go alone. Samuel stared at the words. Not a bluff. A promise. And tomorrow, the board meeting would be broadcast live. Public. Unavoidable. And for the first time, Victor Langford would not control the room. The boardroom of Langford Global was tense. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city skyline, but no view could distract from the weight of what was about to unfold. Cameras had been set up outside the doors. Investor representatives crowded the back. Media were waiting for statements, not stories. Victor Langford stood at the head of the polished mahogany table. His suit was perfect. His tie was precise. His hands gripped the edge of the table, as though control itself could be clenched in his fist. But even he couldn't control the storm that was coming. Samuel Okoye entered quietly, accompanied by Danielle Cho from the commission. His steps were steady, calm. He had prepared every word, every fact, every date. There would be no tremble, no apology for being right. Victor's blue eyes swept the room, landing on Samuel. A flicker of recognition passed over his face, a hint of unease. You brought him? Victor hissed, leaning toward a board member. Yes, the chairwoman replied firmly. He is here to provide testimony. The room fell silent. Samuel stepped forward, voice clear. Good morning. I'm here to recount an incident that took place 3 weeks ago in the lobby. It is part of a larger pattern of behavior that has affected staff morale, trust, and professional conduct. Victor's jaw tightened. Pattern? Yes, Samuel said. Not only the events of that morning, but consistent actions across multiple departments. Public humiliation, threats, retaliation, insubordination claims used as intimidation. A murmur rippled through the boardroom. One investor whispered to another. The camera zoomed in on Victor's face. For the first time, his composure flickered. Samuel's gaze didn't waver. I understand the weight of my words. I recorded the events in the lobby not to embarrass, but to show truth. You said to me, you are replaceable. That is exactly what happened. Staff were made to feel expendable, powerless. Victor's mouth opened. You threatened my livelihood. You revoked my severance. You try to paint me as unstable. And now, Samuel paused, letting the weight of the moment settle. The public, the board, and regulators are aware of your actions. Victor's hands trembled slightly. This is not how... Yes, Samuel interrupted gently, but firmly. It is exactly how. You cannot erase what happened. You cannot silence witnesses. You cannot undo the record of your behavior. A former executive, seated nearby, leaned forward. He's telling the truth. I resigned because of intimidation. What happened in that lobby was not an isolated incident. Victor's face drained of color. He opened his mouth, closed it, and glanced around. The room that once reinforced his authority now reflected his exposure. The board chairwoman's voice cut through. Mr. Langford, your conduct is under formal investigation. Based on testimony and evidence, we recommend you step aside from all executive duties until this is resolved. The cameras captured every second. Social media notifications pinged across devices. Headlines were already writing themselves. Victor took a deep breath. His voice lowered, almost a whisper. I never intended. Samuel leaned slightly forward. Intent does not excuse harm, sir. Accountability does. And accountability is public. Victor sank into his chair. For the first time, he was reduced to the position of witness, not judge. The power he wielded so arrogantly was gone. The humiliation he had inflicted on Samuel returned to him, amplified by scrutiny, exposure, and truth. Samuel exhaled. He felt the tension in his shoulders release slowly. He had not sought revenge. He had sought justice. And justice, public, undeniable, socially visible, had arrived. Outside, media crews captured the boardroom. Online, millions saw the confrontation unfold in real time. Comments flooded in, praising Samuel's composure, courage, and integrity. The narrative had shifted. Samuel was no longer the powerless guard. He was the emblem of truth prevailing. Amara's message buzzed. "I'm so proud of you." Samuel smiled faintly, replying, "We did it together." As the board convened to finalize Victor's temporary removal and begin the formal review process, Samuel stepped outside the building for the first time that morning. The air was crisp. The sun reflected off the glass towers. He realized that what he feared, losing dignity, stability, hope for his daughter, was no longer at risk. Victor's threats, his power plays, and his intimidation had all collapsed under the weight of truth and courage. Samuel looked back at the building. Humiliation had transformed into vindication. Fear had transformed into resolve. And the lesson was clear. Standing firm for what is right may feel impossible at first, but justice, when pursued with integrity, is stronger than any power wielded without conscience. And for the first time in weeks, Samuel felt free. If this story touched your heart, like and subscribe for more powerful stories of courage, justice, and unexpected reversals. And don't forget, comment where you're watching from. Your support helps keep these stories coming.